was kind enough to give me a broad context of this conversation. Some of you who were part of my earlier sessions with multiple organizations to discuss this topic. At a cost of repetition, I think we'll have this conversation for the next 30 minutes, and I will open up for Q&A post 30 minutes. During the conversation, if you have any insights and you want me to explain certain things which you think is bothering you, or you want to make a comment on, please use the chat room for your comments or your questions. I will ensure in my 30 minutes initial monologue, I will try to cover those insights as you type your chat room in the chat room. Otherwise, at the end of 30 minutes, we will give you dedicated 30 minutes for Q&A. Again, you can ask questions on a audio, or you can type your questions on the chat room. So that would be our broad guideline for next 1 hour. Having said that, let me give you a context of what has happened pre-COVID and post-COVID. Largely the universe of industries across the world, including those large-scale geographies, both in terms of consumption of the products and services and the universe of customers, have got impacted. So COVID did not spare any particular geography. It has really engulfed the length and breadth of a lot of geographies which never thought this kind of a calamity can happen. So to that extent, the calamity is across the geography, across the sectors. Coincidentally, the degree of impact in terms of severity is very, very severe in certain industries, and slightly lower in certain industry, and certain industry has very minimal impact. Now, if you reverse this pyramid of industries which did not have much impact, fortunately, IT and ITS is one of them amongst the degree of difficulty of working in post-COVID situation. But the industries which are really, really impacted are the industries which are such as airlines, hospitality, real estate, retail, large-scale, retail business, fashion, everything which has to do with business to consumer, B2C pattern. I think that has impacted, because you don't get to find people to go to a place because of physical distancing and locking up yourself across the globe. So the entire B2C model has impacted. A relatively lesser model, which is, and of course, manufacturing, or a process industry, which is 24/7. Relatively lesser impacting organizations or industry sectors could be IT and ITS, primarily because the environment in which they operationalize themselves in the past and today has just changed in their pattern of working style. So today, large-scale IT, ITS organizations are working from home, and 70 to 90%, some organizations even operational 90% working from home. And the best in class one are operating at 96, 97%. So from a people perspective, 95, 97% is a phenomenal figure when it comes to working from home. That means those companies have done extremely well for themselves and their employees to ensure they give cover to their customers. What has changed in the less impacting organizations like IT and ITS? I just want to, not because I work in IT, ITS, I just want to cover, but I just want to cover this from a standpoint of the scale of change which you see post-COVID. So I will spend some time there. While 95% of the employees are working, 50 to 60% of the customer work will continue. The so-called discretionary expenses by the CIO and CXO organizations of the customer, they've decided to go slow on those discretionary spending on IT, which could be around 30 to 40%. And those non-value added, which had not urgent, not important, have been scrapped. So to that extent, you will find around 50 to 60% of the population still working on projects with those customers who are with those large scale IT industries will continue to do well for those set of assignments. Now, here comes a question of the 30 to 40% is discretionary spending by the CXOs of these organizations, which used to give IT budgets. Now, those will get delayed. It won't be denied. So you will not find until those countries open up fully, maybe end of Q2 of financial year, our financial year, and really getting into full-fledged mode, which is Q3 of next our financial year, which is October, November, December. You will find all those companies, even those discretionary 30-40% coming back into action. And Q4, I think we might get back to where we left Q4 of last year. So in terms of revenue growth, in terms of costs, I think revenue may not grow. It might grow flattish for the financial year or even slightly negative as far as large scale ITs organizations are concerned. And this is my personal view. It's not none of my organization's view or not the view from apex bodies which govern these organizations. No, this is my personal view. So you will have a flattish growth or slightly negative growth as far as revenues are concerned. Margins will get impacted. Organization will rationalize a lot of costs which are wastages. People who are not being productive will be asked to spend time for themselves to upgrade, upskill, spend some time with families and upskill themselves in the given hobby which they desired in their life. So all that will happen. So that's as far as the formatting of the industry overlaying the next 3 quarters. Now, how do we cope up? How do these companies will cope up? One good and bad news, let me tell you. If the spike gets restricted after lockdown opens up to a reasonable number, you will find businesses are back in action by July onwards. So to that extent, you have to wait and watch for the next 1.5 months. This next 1.5 months post lockdown is the key period for all of us to watch and wait and watch, just to see whether that's going to exponentially increase or that's going to stabilize and life becomes very normal, both in terms of number of people getting impacted and number of restrictive governance around industries and the people working in those industries. That's a wait and watch model. Imagine everything goes well and post July we are in a better shape. What will change would be industry will go a little shy on onboarding experienced laterals for sure, because they come with a price point, they're expensive. If they've lost an opportunity with an existing employer, hiring markets or the market where people used to get hired will get stabilized, in the sense they may not hire so many laterals. And what kind of the scale of the industry which will get impacted? The startups and mid-sized organizations will have a large scale impact because they have to get back to there was a point wherein these startups and mid-sized companies never went to VCs for money because VC will sit on their head and track them and their growth. So you will not find a lot of these companies who never visited or approached a VC additional investments. So that investments will start, and you will find a lot of startups and mid-sized companies taking up opportunity to bring back their finances in order. Having said that, a lot of lateral jobs may not be existing in the market, but the good news on the flip side, because I'm talking to a crowd, not because I'm talking to replacement officers and people who manage freshers. I think a lot of investment will go in freshers. Uh, I'll tell you there is a logic behind why I'm saying this. It's better to manage a learning curve of 6 months with a fresher who comes at a cost of uh, uh, half the cost of a lateral or 1/4 of the cost of a lateral. Uh, it's better to spend that 6 months to bring him up to speed so that by the time customers are willing to give you business, especially for mid-size and small scale industries and startups, you have enough time for these youngsters to get those opportunities to work in these organizations. Now, what format of work, what can change in terms of those work opportunities? A, you're, you may have to look at projects without any pay. You may have to identify projects which they can help you, give you those projects to work from home. You may have to identify uh, uh, those companies which can give you work tying up with the institute, thereby identifying a set of people or syndicates of people who can work on a given project to work from home. In addition to the regular academic program, because the academic program to work from home will continue till about early July. So all of your students will work from home or study from home till about July. After that, I think we should open up. So the models will change in terms of summer internship, in terms of hobby projects, in terms of projects, unpaid project can go up. So people will be looking at such unpaid projects, which can help them to get a grip on uh, hands-on skills and learning on the fly in projects, sitting from home, really remotely, making sure you can deliver results by not being around. I think those models will have to be evolved. And institutions, education institutions, as well as startups and mid-sized companies have to invest time in this area, primarily because do they have a choice? If they have to hire people, they have to hire at a price point which will make them uh, financially untenable to manage their balance sheet. So to that extent, it's better to invest on freshers who can get trained and get the learning curve up to speed after a point in time, say 6 months. So that's one part of the conversation which you need to keep in mind. The other part of the conversation is all around what happens to freshers when they get back to industry. Will they get hired? Now, fortunately for us, as industries, and when I talk to some of my friends in the institutes, education, academic world, most of their hiring was done by March. Whatever was the balance will remain. The balance will have a problem to get placed for this year. And now it depends on, the balance could be as high as 50% or the balance could be 10%, depending on how hard you pitched yourself as an education institution to place your students who are already passed out or passing out now after the exams. I think that crowd will have a problem. The second set of people who will have a problem is in the stack rank of students, academic excellence, for an industry or a recruiter, the first thing which he or she will look at is the profile or the CV with certain percentage and above to be qualified for an interview. Now, the top 30%, there is no change. Their compensation will not change as much as people at 60% bracket and people who are less than 60% in academic qualification marks. I think the middle segment and the last segment. Last segment will find it extremely hard for the next 1 year to get themselves placed. The 60, the middle of the bell curve, the 60% of the population who got lesser than 60%, who are not the best in class, they will struggle. There will be a delay in their placement in their first year of their job. But the top profile will never lose that opportunity to be placed with a delay of a month or two. So both in terms of the current academic portfolio of colleges and education institutes who have done well and completed their campus, there is no impact or minimum impact. Those who have not done it, there will be an impact in a staggered manner. The top profile of the students will always be absorbed with a delay of 1 or 2 months, whereas the middle will be a couple of months, maybe 1 quarter. The bottom will never get placed this year. They have to wait, upskill themselves and wait for the next year, wherein they can produce certain significant skill set which they can showcase to the industry. As far as the students of next year is concerned, it's business as usual, because this is not the campus time. Campus time starts in the month of August, September, or even October, goes up till March. So for the first year, the students who are going to pass out next year, which is 21 pass outs, financial year 21 pass outs, they will not have any problem because businesses will be as aggressive to make up for the losses which they made in these 2 months, April and May. March, negligible losses. Many companies were operating till about 22nd of March. So these 2 months, April, May, and touch wood, if nothing happens and the rebate becomes better, it will remain these 2 months. So just to summarize, current students will have staggered changes to their placement. Next year students, no change. I don't think it will impact at all. Now, some of you have asked in the previous session, what are the skills one has to focus? Do we need to change the skills which they acquired? For me, COVID or no COVID, skill set is a function of the demand. So I will continue to see the same kind of skill set required when markets open up. You will not see any change of skill set. For example, if you want to get into data science, you should be good at analytics. You should take up courses in analytics. You should take up, say, RStudio or a Python. You should take up courses which can help you to do well in a data science. If you want to take up a job in, say, mechanical engineering, vibration analysis, you should take. So these are traditional examples of mine, and I'm repeating again and again. But the fact is, from a skill set point of view, you may not change a big change, which will be expected from you or your students in the days to come. So don't worry, there will not be any major demand for those new skills. No, I don't think so. The existing skill set, do well and make sure you canvas the industry to come and pick your students and encourage people or students to do remote work, working closely with your industry academia contacts which you have. Yeah, one more question which you asked in the past session, do we need to prepare our students? I think you should prepare your students to have a great attitude of taking up anything which comes on their way. That's the first thing, because you may not get paid assignments. You may not get a lot of companies to go and visit the campus. A lot of cool campus might happen. You might have to send your students to those cities wherein there are opportunities. You may have to identify courses to engage these students, and those courses are prescribed by a set of institutions, a set of organizations, wherein the assessment is put by them, and they would like to check post you investing time and effort on these students to scale them up. And post that, the organization might come and invest their time to assist them. So you may have to do multiple models of ensuring you pick up students who can really um, take up those skill set and learn them hard and learn them well, and their ability or attitude to pick up any of the assignment online, offline in the days to come. So A, attitude, B, establishing hands-on courses in the campus, making sure you identify a set of employers who can pre-select, give a letter of intent. If they clear those assessments, bring in those candidates to be absorbed by those customers, those recruiters. So make sure you have a end-to-end tied up uh, 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 agreements wherein these employers are willing to invest subject to you scaling up these students after X number of months of investments. Where it will get consumed, again, people who are having severe financial crunches and people who can't stand up, and you are the community who can help them stand up. I'm not talking about large scale organizations. Large scale organizations will continue to do what is right, and you might see a very, very minimal impact on big scale organizations or large organizations to pick up students. I think your focus has to be those industries who will look for freshers to come with a minimum cost, with an ability to learn quick, with a um, of learning curve of certain months, which can help them to shape up. So I will, these are my broad uh, uh, understanding of the topic and my own impressions about the topic. I'm sure each one of you have a lot of questions for me. Um, I can't see any questions on chat room, so uh, feel free to ask me questions at any point in time.
Praveen, can we open it up for Q&A then, if you are done?
Yeah, sure, we can.
Professors, placement officers, and HODs, if you have any questions, either you can put it on the chat window, the Q&A, or I'm sure you all know you can also, there's an option to raise hands. If you raise your hands, we will try to unmute you and then you could ask your question directly to Mr. Praveen. Praveen, in the meanwhile, there are two things that I wanted to check with you from CII's end, right? What you've already touched upon, what are the primary skills that the student should be upskilling on? And sometimes there is this challenge from the colleges to find out the right kind of, say, experienced folks to come and train these children on. Is there any way that, say, if CII is able to enable, along with Wipro, if we could do some sort of an online sessions on some of these skills, would that be a possibility or something that you would consider?
Yeah, so that conversation we have to do certainly with the respective um, training organizations of Wipro. Let me, companies of our size will have minimum impact when it comes to supply chain. So to that extent, your ability to influence with the business case is minimal because whether it's Wipro, Infosys, TCS, or any other company, they have their own established routes and established training setups, which will help them to scale up and stand tall to an opportunity and supply talent. To that extent, you may have to come with a value proposition, which can help an organization of our size or similar sized organization whenever they have an off-campus requirement, right?
Mhm.
So when I'm saying, uh, because you may not have the talent available now between June and say August or September, if there is a large scale off-campus initiative which needs to be established and generated,
Mhm.
especially from non-traditional education background. For example, BSc graduates who are required in an IT company versus a B, such kind of an arrangement. You may like to explore amongst the large scale organization and see whether there is a consumption of such talent, because campus being very seasonal activity, you will find campus recruitment happening only during certain seasons only.
True.
So off season, off campus opportunity, I would see there could be an opportunity for organization like CIIT approach.
Got it. Perfect. The reason I asked that, Praveen, the reason is we have a presence in about 46 cities as of today across India. And we were also trying to bridge the gap between universities and organizations as CII, as an industrial body. That's the reason I asked the question. Let me focus on the question that have come up from the professors at this point of time. There's a question from Mr. Umesh M. Annavar. Avanar. His question is tentatively 2020 batch place students, if for example, if they've been given an offer from Wipro, will they continue to join Wipro in a
100%.
staggered approach, right? That, as you had already
100%.
clarified that.
100%. There is no change. For
Good.
us, it doesn't change. It's just that lockdown, we can't do onboarding. The onboarding was supposed to be in May. We'll onboard in a month's time, or say June, July. None of the large scale company will change that format, Umesh. For them, it might get delayed. It may not be denied, is my impression. I don't want to be wrong there.
No, totally. Praveen, I think this is a trend with all the major companies, including Wipro. I think the layoffs and others have been persistent in the startup space as such, not in established companies. That's what we have at least seen from our end. Okay, with that, I'll come to the next question too. This is from Professor Nagesh. How is the trend of hiring according to you for 2021 batch?
Nothing will change.
It'll remain same as the pre-COVID season, right?
Nothing will change.
Beautiful. So with that, there is Professor Manasa who's raised her hand. I'll just unmute her to ask her question directly, Mr. Praveen.
Hello, good evening, one and all. I'm Manasa, the Senior Manager Corporate Relations from Maharishi Markandeshwar University, Haryana. Yeah, so my question is, sir, it was very happy to hear that for the 2021 season, the campus hiring, there wouldn't be many changes. But I wanted to understand, will there be any changes in the mode of hiring, as in the companies visiting the universities, will it remain the same, or will we be moving towards the virtual mode of hiring? Because as of now, the product-based companies, most of the companies who hire interns from us are going towards the virtual hiring. They have these virtual interviews and virtual joinings going on. So if I would talk about the biggies, the top MNCs who enter the universities as day 1, day 2, and day 3 and so on, will they have the same virtual interviews, or will they still remain visiting the universities, sir?
Yeah, nothing will change, Manasa. Primarily because your season of campus picks up between November and December, and it touches January and February. So these 4 months, by the time you would have consumed the entire post-COVID, uh, 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 you know, post-COVID scenarios. What will change, which otherwise would have changed, is your initial screening, your initial shortlisting process, your ability to do, say, all hands meet to do a pre-placement talk.
Okay.
Those things will change, but I don't think, ultimately, and the pattern of selection, if a company of a large scale company like an Accenture or an IBM or a Infosys, Wipro, and TCS can join hands together for a particular hiring season, because they want to look at quality numbers together. So the pattern might slightly change, but I'm afraid, at the end of the day, everybody will forget the past, okay? Our memories are very short. And I've seen this, whenever these kind of disaster you go through, and 2008, a small scale disaster happened. And I was heading talent acquisition those days. For me, the target never came down. In fact, it went up. I don't see the changes. I may be super optimistic, or you might think that I'm oversimplifying. No, I'm primarily saying it from my own experience. People will forget and they get back to a good shape in both in terms of speed and execution and ability to get the first top talent, first group of top talent from those companies or those institutions who are able to give them the supply. So Manasa, be optimistic, keep in touch, make programs, run, do all those programs now remotely. You do your all hands connects. You have connects with the industry leaders. You do sessions with the industry leaders now through online formatting. But selection will be a business as usual. I don't see any changes there.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for making the point really clear.
Thank you, Manasa, for asking the question too. There are two other questions that we have. Okay, the name is not mentioned here, just the phone number, but then I think I'll ask the question again. You had specifically spoken about niche skills like AI and machine learning, right? So do you think the colleges should focus on also upskilling these skills right in the university level?
Okay, so let me tell you, the 11th and 12th standard students today have hobby projects on AI ML. Community colleges in the US, even in the high school level, they give them a lot of AI ML projects. If the world is looking at AI ML is the fastest opportunity for all of us to grab, we should start early as a country, as an education institute. And that may not be the crowd I'm addressing today. I'm addressing a crowd which is professional engineering colleges and maybe business schools who have joined us. The faster you start engaging people on these skill sets, which are currently being leveraged between 10 to 20% in a universe of corporate IT setups, to a best known organization can use digital revenue can go up to say 50%. But on an average, 20% of revenue comes from digital revenue, okay? I'm saying in the industry, 20 to 25%. Rest is all, they're all driving hard, but they're not there. But for you as education institutions, what stops you from doing it in the first sem itself, first trimester itself? The more investment of time and effort you put in investing in upskilling, and that's the time your kids are more focused and serious. They're not spoiled. 6th semester, 7th semester, 8th semester, they don't study at all. They don't care. And if you place them, they don't even attend classes. Okay. So to that extent, catch them young. Faster you get them on board, better it would be for you. And make sure you're able to influence them by investing their time, effort, and money. Don't give something which is free of cost. Make them pay for it, but you get the best in class speakers or trainers or education institutions or tying up with people like CII. So, you should understand the nature of the beast very early and do all that which makes the beast to operationalize themselves. So they look very beautiful when you present them in front of corporate. And I'll tell you, I have huge arguments with, I sit in a couple of boards of engineering colleges from my very own city where I belong to. And I have huge fights with those entrepreneurs. I tell them, you shut down shop, it's not worth it. because I can know 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, you will not survive. For everything they look at money. So I tell them, look, money will be paid by the kid, but you conceptualize it and drive it hard. Use an universe of, your collective pool of education institution in your area. Run a replica of a Allen or a replica of a Baidu. If they can produce top class outputs, you can produce top class outputs in the relevant skill set. Do we have a single institution today in India which can really boast about, or they can boast about, they being the top-notch AI, ML oriented college which can give this kind of an insight very early? None, in my opinion. So you may not like my answer, but that's a reality.
Perfect, Praveen. I hope that answers your question. I don't know the name of the professor who's asked it. If you can ask any follow-up questions or tell us that if you've got it clarified, that'll be helpful. With that, I'll go to the next question. This is more like a generic question, Mr. Praveen. So this question is okay. Right now, with the whole assumption that there is assumption again, I'm putting this very clearly. Assumption from the industry that there's going to be a lack of hiring or hiring freeze. Is this like a good time for students to go for higher studies? This is from Mr. Prasad Bate.
Yeah, so, I'll, at a cost of knowing all of you and being very close to academia for the last 25 years on my personal time, I take the leeway to tell you a joke. When I passed out in the early 90s, people either sent their students, their kids for medical education, engineering education. People who could not get there, not because of their abilities, because they don't have ability to pay the fee, or they don't want to send their children outside of their cities or villages. They used to make, tell all of us, become a teacher, Environment should not force you to do a higher education. Environment combined with your abilities to take up an appropriate course should make you take up higher education. Don't do higher education, and especially post-graduation, without some experience. You have to bite the bullet by being a graduate first. I've made that mistake. Many of my fellow mates have made that mistake. It's better to be experienced with 2 to 3 year experience and take up an appropriate line, which by that time a maturity to pick up a higher education. That's what happens in a lot of these foreign universities in locations such as US, Australia, Canada, and of course, off late, some of these Gulf country universities, they're offering a lot of courses. Now, people come with a lot of experience, and by that time, when you come in, you know what's right and what's wrong, and what is that will take you in the right direction, keeping in mind your own abilities, your own hobby, your own architecture of skill sets, attitude, outlook. So don't take it up because environment is created, there's nothing happening, 1 year I will lose. Yeah, take up a skill set, take an additional certification program. There are enough institutions available in the country to take up additional certification.
Beautiful, beautiful answer. I think also Prasad has also written a response to it. Yes, it's true. Don't go by force, go by choice. And he's thanking you for the response. I think you've given a damn good insight on that, Mr. Praveen.
Thank you very much, Yogi.
Perfect. I'll go to the next question. This is from Professor Madhushri. The question is, upskilling is a great idea. Do corporates give more weightage to the global certified skills, or will students be hired only for the technology learned?
combination of both. Your basics have to be superbly strong. Uh, you know, let me give you an IT example. I'm sorry if I'm giving you an IT example, but Java is mother of all languages. Okay, you can't go to full stack without learning Java. Your academic insights and academic rigor should make sure a kid is able to pick up the technology skills to the depth in which he can understand, and able to stand tall for uh, learning the basics right. The, the finest of the finest universities in the world have taught basics right, and they have done it repeatedly. That's why they are world class. Once you do your basics right, and they've repeated year after year, they've scaled up as a world renowned universities. Now, after doing that well, for example, do you have workshops on writing codes? Do you have programming hackathons? Do you have coding hackathons? Do you have, if you're good at mechanical engineering, do you do workshops on lathe machine operation? Make sure you get industry experts to do these workshops. And there are plenty of them who are available. At their personal time, they come and spend their time. You just put a rhythm to the format of lesson being learned, the pedagogy, the output expected, what kind of a support they would require, online, offline. This education industry, I want to call that as an industry because many people think that there is a lot of money to make, and they've made money. They don't want to invest back in these thought processes. That's why most of these education institutions have people in their board who are absolutely useless. I'm sorry to say this, who are absolutely useless because they don't value add to the new pedagogy or new skill set, new subject knowledge, new lesson plan, new method of learning. Nothing that they invest. They only invest in understanding the PNL of that college and having high tea and lunch and dinner. You should have investment of making sure you have tons of hands-on learning in their initial semesters, followed by upskilling workshops. Okay. Now, upskilling workshop, never give it free of cost, and do a big time competition. For example, you are doing a course on, say, Python, or your full stack, or you're doing a program on, say, instrumentation in gas industry. Take unique areas and create competition to get a seat in such technology enhanced sessions. Let people compete and pay a price for it. Okay, I'll tell you the same model which Alan and others follow, right? They say our fee is this much. You write a competitive exam, I'll give you a discount on 25%. For a consumer, I will understand that model because the base price itself is minus the 25% discount which they give. That I know. But a commoner will not understand. A commoner will understand that the child has done a great job and he's got 25% discount. And the child will feel so good because he's in A section, not in B section. And what they do is they categorize people by virtue of their native intelligence, which is good because the trainer's job becomes that much easier to convert them from A to A plus and A plus plus category, right? Which is the right model for trainers or teachers. So you create A class in your initial semesters. You want to create A plus and A plus plus? Give a lot of insights by getting professional organization to come and teach you that. And you, in turn, tie up with such institutions or corporations to go and give an LOI subject to an assessment which is cleared by your students, which has been given by them. A letter of intent can be given. I will hire only when you qualify in this particular assessment. You tie them up with those models. That's why I gave the context of, board members and, make it rock solid. Don't get people with fame. Get people who can bring in a lot of ideas. They could be your senior 10-year passed out student who can come and give you those insights. It need not have to be a person like me who's 25 years in the industry. Call a young guy like Yogi who can give you investment of time and effort to make sure you do models of your education basis what is required by the industry. Because he works for a startup, he works for an early organization. So you understand what I'm saying? So look at those models and change your models, both for learning skills, basic skills, and advanced skills.
Beautiful. I think this has become like one of the sessions where we are getting a lot of hope and the right kind of an action that every single institution should take up as a part of the situation that they currently are in, and then how could they enable their students as a part of it. Thanks a lot for these insights. I'm also making notes that I could probably share tidbits of what you're speaking about today, Mr. Praveen. Thanks for doing that. With that, I'll come to Mr. Vikas's question. There's a question by Mr. Vikas Shamoli. His question is, sir, what are the main challenges you faced at the time of campus recruitment in terms of both engineering and management students? And what are the solutions according to you for this?
Okay, I think very difficult question, often asked. Okay, so you may not get, you might get a lot of cliched answer for this. My own, I do a little bit of teaching for management grads in my personal time. Engineering, make them breathless in their first 4 semesters or first 6 semesters in terms of hands-on skill set learning, and big time marketing such people, such students to those organizations who can consume them. Let me repeat. Make the first 6 semester absolutely asphyxiate them with respect to the skill set which can be absorbed by the industries who has their need. And the next 2 semesters, big time market such students to those organizations who can pick them up. You have to do that parallelly. Once you are known to be what you are good at, for example, IIM Calcutta is known for data analytics, and IIM A is known for good marketing people. IIM B is a combination of both. Indian Institute of Statistics is known for statisticians who can do world-class models, okay, statistical models. Why they are so good? Because whatever they know it really, really, really well. So pick up 3-4 areas and make yourself extremely known in that industry. And that responsibility give it to the respective HODs. Don't run it from the placement office. Incentivize your HODs to do this. For example, a mechanical HOD will bring in people from the automobile industry, and he has to get in to those subjects wherein he can excite both the organizations which are in the automobile sector as well as students who would like to take up automobile as their specialization to do additional certification programs. Now that could be 2 programs in addition to all the curriculum which you are giving. Start with 1, but you should be known for that. Likewise, electrical, instrumentation, IT, operations, whatever specialization which you are known for, create a deep understanding of that particular skill set or that technology or that domain well known to people around you, where there is a lot of consumption. So invest your TPO to market that well. Get them for competition. Take them to those organizations where they can showcase their projects. Do it ones and twos. Don't do it in large scale. Take the top 1-2 people who can make a significant difference and by doing a presentation. For example, if you find a great guy who can speak on vibration analysis in mechanical engineering, just go and fall on the feet of the HR head of Toyota and ask him to call that student in a all hands meet. And that boy will speak on vibration analysis to a set of engineers who day in, day out for 35 years did only that job. And here comes a kid who's like 18, 20, 21 years old, telling about what's happening in vibration analysis. Now, you create a wow feeling, right? Get the FM guys to record it. Put 2 large hoardings in airport. It might cost you tons of money, but you're known. You understand? I'll give you the simile. Today, XLRI is known for HR. Why? Because they built that market. They built people. They built products over a period of time. Similarly, IIMs have that brand. Similarly, management schools. You should be known for something and known really, really well. So, create a lot of good people, generate a lot of noise and right noise, market it hard, create sensational 1 or 2 wins, make it big. Now, it has to be consistent. You can't do it 1 year and leave it. That's why you need somebody who can give a lot of these insights on a regular basis, right? Pick the brain of those 6 or 7 people whom you should call once a quarter and talk to those people. And they should be from variety of industry background. Bring them to your board. They could be an advisors to your company, your institute, and operationalize those ideas with the rhythm and rigor to evaluate. You might fail once, twice, 3 times, 3 years. See, in a life of a college, engineering college, which will survive for say 50, 60 years, okay? A good college, always 3 years is 5% of your entire life value. Don't worry. The problem is we get extremely bored with 3 years of failure, and we don't see ourselves, position ourselves right. Don't give up. I think you will be able to do it.
Beautiful. I think that is like a apt way that a college should actually go about it, because what I've seen is a lot of startups do something like this. They capitalize their PR on these 1 or 2 substantial wins, and they make a massive PR out of it. And the way Mr. Praveen has shared it, I think if colleges can do that and push and persevere to get those 1 or 2 substantial wins, it's going to massively boost your visibility in terms of HRs or organization that would typically start hiring. So that is like I've not got these kind of insights from anyone else, Mr. Praveen, let me be honest. And I'm sure all the professors who are here right now, the TPOs who are here, these kind of insights no one's given us or given them. And thank you for doing that. There is a last question that I'll pick it up from. This is again an anonymous attendee has given this question. This is the last question for the day, and then we will wrap up for today. The question is, suppose if the student is having very good skills in AI and ML, but the institution is autonomous, will the industry accept this? Again, I know that you have partially answered this in your previous context that you had given in terms of PR and creating that as a massive win. But if you can elaborate specifically on how do they prepare themselves for this, that would be really like insightful, Mr. Praveen.
100%. So any skill which is latest and greatest, I call it as the latest and greatest skills, right? Will be absorbed like this. Make sure don't give only academic insights. to the students. Give them a lot of project-based experiences, real life experiences. Make sure they've got 1 or 2 live projects to which they can do or they've done. That's important. Autonomous colleges can do wonders. I'm telling you, if they have a right brand equity, they can do wonders. But it all starts with people putting their right investment of time and effort in the right direction by having the right people to advise them from time to time. I think that would help. And don't start big. Do it in smaller pilots, smaller groups, and invest time on this smaller group, significantly higher time, and build that brand equity for those people, those students.
Sorry, I was on mute. Perfect, Mr. Praveen. I think with that, there are no other questions being asked here. So on behalf of Young Indians and Confederation of Indian Industries, I thank you for taking your time off on a day, on a weekend actually. I know you're working very hard on those weekdays, and then you took time off on today, which is your personal day off, and then coming and sharing your insights and actually giving actionable steps to the TPOs and the college authorities to work on. So this was very insightful for us. At least I think I'm going to make multiple summaries of this and do share it with them. And then I'm sure they would start working on this. Thanks a lot for doing this, Mr. Praveen. On behalf of CII, I genuinely thank you from the bottom of my heart for this particular thing.
Thank you very much, Yogi, for calling me, and looking forward for connecting.
Perfect.
Bye-bye.
Sure.
Take care.
Sure. Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a great evening and have a great Sunday tomorrow then. Bye-bye.
Bye.